Hello everybody and welcome to this, the 3586th edition of the FireSide Chat. That of course is absolute nonsense. I have no idea how many FireSide Chats there have been. My name is James Hendry, and if you have not been watching the whole afternoon, I have to ask you the question as to what on earth you have been doing that could possibly have more importance. To my left, the inimitable Brent Leo Smith.
Hello everyone.
We are going to be talking about the Birmingham Coalition of Lions. We're also going to be talking about wild dogs, and we're also going to be talking about cheetah. But before we do that, I just want to show you something that has just occurred. And I'm not sure if Andrew's going to get in as tight as he can. There is a tiny little hole in this log here, out of which have been emerging a whole lot of little termite alates. And these are the reproductive termites. And I really love it when they come out. It's such a difficult life for a termite. And I was just saying the other day how exciting it is when they do come out and start to breed. They'll go off and start off new colonies. As they seem to be a bit camera shy, they've stopped coming out of this hole basically immediately as you joined us. Anyway, so onto the lions. Been some incredibly exciting stuff this week. And we had a question from Natalie who wanted to know, if the Birmingham Coalition does manage to take over this area, will they murder the cubs of any pregnant female in either the Styx Pride, because we have seen the Matimbas mating with the Styx female recently, or within the Nkuhuma Pride? And Natalie, the answer is an unquestionable yes. I'm afraid they will. We've been learning about infanticide. It happens throughout the mammal kingdom, except for in very few species, one of which Brent found out was the cheetah. They don't do it. All the other cats engage in some kind of infanticide in order to bring the females back into estrus so that they can pass on their genes.
No, the cheetah one was quite interesting, but I think we'll move on to the cheetah a little bit later. But we're going to stick with the lions for now. And it was fascinating. James was actually around while we were after those lions. James was out in tracking team, and he headed out just before us while we were still doing our pre-flight checks, getting the vehicles ready. And we headed out, and James was like, "There are tracks there." So I zoom around, and he goes, "No, the track's going there." There literally were lion tracks everywhere on Juma. And then all of a sudden, we heard lions calling, and it was quite disappointing because it sounded like they were to the south of us. And we still continued around in the area, and then I happened to be driving up the southern boundary, and I had James yelling in my ear, "There are still lions!" and he's sprinting down the road directly at us, going, "Go that way, go that way." So we did, and we were fortunate enough then, we heard that sort of very interesting call.
Them before they started to roar again. Remember, this little coalition of 5 had split into 2 and 3. 2 of them were on the southern side of our boundary where we couldn't go, and we thought they were shouting, and we thought, well, that's it, obviously we're not going to be able to get them. And I was standing on the road there trying to find where they'd crossed, and I couldn't find any tracks. And then I heard, oh, just on my left-hand side, to the north of the road. And shouted at Brent, charged down the road, said, get in there, and lo and behold, he found them.
It was really, really lucky, and thanks, James, for that. But the best way to show you what that sort of precursor to the roar is to show you. So here is a clip of a bit of those interactions, and we will chat about them a bit more after the clip. So enjoy the clip.
The 5 Birmingham boys.
And I'm so excited. This is my first glimpse of the Birmingham boys. So from where we're sitting right now, the Matimbas are less than 400 meters. This could be just a testing out foray. Call. Quite a lot of sort of showing off to see whose sounds more impressive. There we go. Scent marking in the core of Matimba territory at the moment. This is definitely the beginnings of attempted pride takeover. Okay, guys, Tex says he can see the Matimbas coming behind them. So really, really exciting what's going on now. So the Matimbas, maybe they had some tactics, move away and then come back with force. That roaring we're hearing is the Matimbas. And here comes the last of the Birminghams. So what a fascinating morning it's been so far. And finally the question whether the Birminghams are really putting pressure on the Matimba coalition has been answered. And the answer is most definitely 100% yes.
Hello everybody and welcome back. Welcome back to the Fireside Chat. Here is Jamie.
Hello.
Hello Jamie, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I like the way you've done your hair this evening.
Thank you
very
very
nice
much.
plait.
Very good suggestion on
Yes,
your part.
thank you. Yes, I was purely for my own benefit that I said that. So, wonderful sighting of the Birmingham males that we've just seen on the clip. And we had a question, Brent.
Yes, it was from Casey in New York. So obviously a lot of that interaction was between them in the Matimba males who are further south, and that calling to and forward, and the Matimbas obviously being quite older and quite a lot older and a lot more have been dominant for a long time. Now historically there used to be 6 Matimbas as far as I know, and what has happened is that the rest of those Matimbas, 4 or 3, I think one of them might have died, have moved further to the north. Casey's question is, would these Matimbas now rejoin to form another big coalition, sort of 5 male lions that could easily compete and push the Birminghams out? Well, Casey, I think in this situation, unfortunately not. What happens with quite a lot of these big coalitions is they do split and sometimes can be very far apart. And in this circumstance, there's actually another coalition of males known as the Salati males that are actually in between the 2 different Matimba coalitions. So unfortunately for the Matimbas, it is very unlikely that they would rejoin to form a sort of super coalition and be able to compete with the Birminghams. So unfortunately not. In other circumstances, we did see it in the central Sabi Sands years ago with the Mapochos. When threats did come in, they would call, but they had adjacent territories and they did come together. But in this circumstance, I think they've been apart for too long. They would probably end up fighting each other. So unfortunately not. I don't think the Matimba coalition will reform into that large coalition it once was.
Then a very nice question from Joanne in Naples, Florida, and perhaps you'd like to leap in here. She wants to know, would it be possible that Junior would ever join the Matimba coalition and help their daddies, basically help his fathers and uncle chase the other new coalition out of the area? Would that ever happen? And you say that it has happened in the Mara, which I think is quite interesting. I've actually never heard of that happening, Joanne, and thank you very much for pointing that out. I certainly haven't seen it here. I would think it's unlikely. That said, when the Mapocho took over here, the Mapocho coalition, what's interesting is that they did that video the other day called Blood, was it Brothers of Blood or something like that? I think it was. And they showed it at the Mapocho as 5 male lions. When they came into the area, there were 6. Yeah. And one of them was much older than the others. Now, whether he was their father, I don't know. It's possible. I think at this stage that the 2 Matimbas are very established. I think Junior, well, I mean, look, he's been around for a while, I think longer than is normal.
Yes, definitely.
So, Joanne, it's not impossible. I'd say it's unlikely. My money would be on not, but it's not entirely impossible. What do you think?
No, I agree, definitely. I think it's unlikely at this point, just in terms of the age difference between the fathers and Junior. And we have had such an interesting interaction with those lions, but looking a little bit broader and further afield, J.K. King has got quite a good question about how it is that this interaction between the lions might affect the other animals. So whether or not it might make, say, for example, the spotted hyenas a bit more skittish, or maybe the leopards picking up on all of the tension. And it is entirely possible. As we saw with that interaction between the Birminghams and the Matimbas, there's a lot of vocalization, and probably the other animals will make themselves scarce. However, I don't think it's going to affect them that much. Lions are always a threat to other predators, so it could just be that they just make themselves a little bit scarce, but no more so than they might have done for any other reason. That's just my sort of take on that. I'm not sure how you feel.
I think quite interestingly, and this leads us on to the next clip, you will hear and you will read that cheetah distribution is heavily influenced by the number of lions that there are in an area. Now, there are a huge number of lions in this area at the moment. We've got the Styx Pride down there with the Matimbas. We've got the Birmingham boys roaming around here somewhere. We've got the Nkuhuma Pride at Simbambili. And yet, a few days ago, we saw 2 cheetah.
And it was a really, really nice pre-long sighting. It's not often that we actually get to spend that much time with cheetah. We actually got to spend almost 2 full drives with those cheetah. So really, really fascinating. And I was lucky enough that it was me who was on both occasions on the drives with the cheetah. Jamie did come in to give us a hand, and James was around. James and Scott were helping tracking. I was really hoping we were going to catch them in a nice open area like quarantine, galloping at full speed after an impala. We had to make do with them galloping at half speed after a warthog in a very thick area, but it's better than them just sleeping. So we're going to show you a clip now of those cheetah. So enjoy it, guys, and we'll chat a little bit more about the cheetah after the clip.
So after a morning of quite a lot of disappointment with the tracks leaving our property, 2 male cheetah have come onto the property. We're just a little bit far away from now. As you can see there, really exciting. Possibly the same 2 males that we saw before, that we saw the quarantine male leopard chase. There could be some impala. I know there were some impala and zebra in the area as we were driving to come look for them. Now there's an impala alarm call, and it wasn't at the cheetah. You can see the towering giraffe looking down upon the cheetah. Wasn't that awesome, guys?
Hello everybody, welcome back from that magnificent cheetah sighting. And although it wasn't my sighting, Scott and I were bumbling around just about around the back trying to help Brent keep up with him. He managed to do a quite stunning job driving through the most horrendous bush. They didn't walk on one road the entire afternoon, and I don't think it's entirely coincidental that we had a few problems with the vehicles yesterday after those cheetah sightings. Anyway, Lynn?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, no, you carry on.
I was to say, it's very interesting that you notice when we follow lion and leopard, they always walk down the road, whereas cheetah don't. And there's actually been quite an interesting paper that was done on this, and it's due to the fact that the other predators, specifically lion and hyena, more so than leopard, are constantly use the roads as highways. So the cheetah in areas of high densities of other predators tend to not use the roads and prefer to traverse through the blocks. That's not to say they won't bump into animals there, but it is an aid to help them not bump into the other predators.
So Lynn from Canada, you wanted to know basically where have these cheetah gone. I don't know. I think they certainly went east out of here, and they may have gone on to Manileti, or they may have gone to Torture to the east. But what is very interesting is that I think they're the same 2 cheetah we've been seeing here for the last little while. You've seen them?
I've seen one of them, but there could well have been a second.
I've seen them once before on the far northeastern boundary, which is exactly where they were heading, and you saw them twice. Yes.
Twice.
Yes.
And I followed them for 2 full game drives.
Yes, very nice for you, Brent. Now shut up. And what's interesting, jokes aside, they are not hugely territorial, especially in the presence of other predators, as far as I understand it. But they clearly do have a defined home range. And those 2 males have formed a little coalition. And they're probably brothers, could well be brothers, and they're wandering around here. And so, with any luck, we will be seeing them a little bit more often. But who knows?
Hopefully. And hopefully they'd bring some girls with them next time.
Yes, some ladies.
And some ladies. But with those cheetah, it's a really, really fascinating thing. It is the only one of the big cats and predators in general that needs a male biased sex ratio to have successful breeding. Whereas everything else, lions, leopards, there need to be more females than males. Cheetahs, the opposite. There need to be more males than females. And this is due to the fact there's quite a lot of theories with their very weak genetic line and that. that the females will bypass up to 4 or 5 males before they decide to mate. So quite a lot of private reserves in the beginning. When they brought cheetah in, they only brought in sort of one coalition of males and 5 or 6 females, and they couldn't understand why they weren't breeding. And this information's come to light, but really, really interesting, and we'll definitely do some more research on that.
And that dovetails with the lack of infanticide, because infanticide tends to occur when there is, there's an excess of males in an area, and I'm losing my train of thought here, but basically what happens is when you have a male biased ratio like that, the infanticide doesn't occur so much, because often there's very little clarity as to who's mated with who, and because they're not territorial, it's very difficult for the cheetah to tell. So there's no actual advantage to them killing young cubs.
I've only found 2 recorded cases of infanticide in cheetah, and I actually saw one in northern Botswana, and the others in the Mara. Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Right, from one very endangered carnivore, we're going to go to the next. And you managed to find us what the other day?
So, on Friday morning's sunrise safari, we actually had the most amazing wild dog sighting, and unfortunately we weren't streaming, but we did record most of it just so that we could share it with the rest of the viewers. And it was so exciting for me, because it was the first time that I've actually seen wild dogs in this area since I started working for WildEarth. So we've got a great clip to show you. So here it is. Enjoy.
The wild dogs, the second most endangered carnivore in Africa.
This sighting was absolutely amazing. Brent and myself were actually fortunate enough to be in that sighting for almost the entire time, well over an hour we spent with them crossing around. And we even had James with us, and the one started hunting a steenbok and killed it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see the kill, but we were there within 2 minutes of that kill, and you can see how incredibly fast these dogs have devoured it, until basically all that was left remaining was a head and some skin. And that was just between 3 young males that we saw wandering through. So absolutely incredible sighting, and so cool that we got to see them like that.
Beautiful. And there were 3 of us knocking about in the sighting.
We were very lucky.
We were extremely lucky, and I'm very sorry that you didn't happen to be alive with us. Now, Brenty, you came up with a quite interesting discussion point on why you thought there were 3 males alone.
Yes, and it's very usual. So wild dogs, when they disperse from their natal pack, it's normally 2, but can be up to 3 or 4 individuals will disperse, and they're all same-sex individuals that disperse together. So you will not get a male and female from the same pack dispersing together. You'll get 2 or 3 males, and they will be looking for 2 or 3 females. This could also be why they're covering such vast distance at the moment. I have sent the IDs of those dogs off to the Endangered Wildlife Trust, and they keep a photographic record, and I'm waiting to hear back from them, so we might be able to find whether they are from the natal pack. And the main reason that led me to this conclusion is, while we were watching them, wild dogs are, as soon as they see a hyena midden, they will generally scent mark on top of it, defecate. These dogs rolled in that midden, but they didn't defecate or try scent mark. So really interesting, and that's what sort of started me on that sort of thought process.
Why do you think they wouldn't have defecated on top of the hyena dung?
Because this is possibly still either Investec or half-tailed pack's territory, and they're moving through. So normally when you watch wild dogs, and they're in their sort of core of their home range or territory, they will scent mark on almost every hyena midden that they pass. These guys just rolled in the hyena midden, sniffed around. They'd spent a lot of time. They must have spent 7 or 8 minutes in that particular hyena midden. So I could be completely wrong, and that's the wonderful thing about it being out here. But that was my thought process with that.
I think that's a pretty good theory myself. Have you seen a wild dog den? Have you been lucky enough to see a den full of puppies?
No, I haven't yet.
No.
I have seen wild dog pups before, but they were just past that denning age, so
Okay.
they were out and about with the adults. So I haven't yet been fortunate to see a wild dog den. I'm really, really excited. I'd love to see one.
Yes.
I mean, I know that they're not denning on our land at the moment, but you never know. We might get lucky.
I think, yeah, well, I'm sure they'll come on here eventually. I mean, as you know, we've got the half-tail pack just south of us on Mala Mala with 2 litters of pups, which, as we discussed last week, is extremely unusual. But I'm sure once those pups are mobile, they will come on to Djuma. Sadly, no den here this year. And you've seen them. You've seen babies.
I've been very lucky. Well, when I grew up in Botswana, we had wild dog denning for 10 years, every year, sometimes 2 packs. So that's where I developed this slight craze. When I see a wild dog, sort of glaze goes over my eye, put it into low range, 5th gear. I skip 1st, 2nd, 3rd, all the way to 4th, and off I charge. Yes.
Until Jiga breaks.
You broke the other one.
Anyway, yes. So I have also seen wild dog pups, but I didn't grow up in a 400,000 hectare concession in Botswana. My experience came from Ngala, which is just north of here, and I remember my parents were staying with me at the time that I first saw the pups, and I didn't have any guests, and I took my folks out there in the freezing cold, and it was dark. It was still 4:30 in the morning, and I made them sit there, and we sipped coffee on the back of the Land Rover. My father thought I was mad. My mother, as I've said before, has never spent a night out of doors in her life, so she thought this was absolutely insane. And then as the sun peeped up, these little pups came out of the termite mound, and it was the most spectacular sighting to see those tiny little babies. It's just so cute. Right. We're going to sort of start closing off fairly soon, and I'm going to do a little song, and just a little one. And there is obviously, just before I do that, there's a huge amount of competition between the predators,
Yes.
and I think it was quite interesting. You had the question about whether this lion interaction is affecting the other
Yes.
predators. I think maybe. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of leopard around.
This is true.
Perhaps they're avoiding it, but competition is fierce, and we do have lots of records of interpredatory competition where predators will kill other predators, and intra-predatory competition now, where we see the Birmingham boys have taken out. It's now 2 of the Nkahuma
is it
lionesses.
2?
Well, there's
I
one.
missed that.
That was the other one was in February, which I only
okay.
found out yesterday.
Okay.
Anyway, so on that somber note, I'm going to play a slightly somber song. And I wrote this song a little while back, in fact quite a few years back, when I was looking at my bookshelf. And I had this kind of riff going on in my mind, out of tune, and I couldn't find any lyrics. And so I looked at the bookshelf, and the bookshelf had a whole lot of books on history, ancient history, and a lot about the wilderness. And so that's kind of what this little song is about. So as we go into next week, which will start tomorrow at the morning safari, who's on drive tomorrow? Me and, is it me?
I think we're not actually 100%
We don't know.
sure. We have to check
It'll
our
be one
schedule.
of the two of us, or 2 of the 3 of us out there, and we'll see you then. Thank you for another wonderful week, and thank you for bearing with the technical difficulties that we had this week, and thank you for your questions and contributions. As I say, they really are appreciated, and we will see you tomorrow on the Dawn Safari. You two can feel free to dance alone, with each other, whatever you like. Said the tired soul of a king who's passed to the keeper of the tale that lasts. I don't believe that you're listening. Said the tired soul to the key-round soul, to the signs in the sky. You must hold the secrets of the builder now are leaking. Where should I be running? Find the breaking dawn light. Said the keeper to the soul, you must find the code where Genesis speaks in verses. Old time's fingers left her markings in the field and all along the desert sands. Old Hiram stretched his old hand, and in the wind the mystery and sanity of alchemy, a talisman must be. Then I fell on my back, the fire's away. Clear the child and the horse pale. I hid my face until the air grew still. The sky ran your flute?
Still in Joburg.
Ah, so you've got...
That hasn't changed in a week.
You've got 7 weeks.
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
I think I need 2 shakers. Then 1.
Said I keep it to the soul. Can you see my mind? The quantum leaps speak for all time, but I don't think it's you who's listening. Said the soldier, the keeper, you can see I'm tired, so why do you talk in your riddles and rhymes? My view is slowly darkening. Where should I be running? This plague is slowly strangling. In the quiet of a valley, an old black king watched his warriors dance and sing, and he could see his old ways are fleeing. And all along the desert sands, old Hiram stretched his old hand. And in the wind, the mystery, sanity of alchemy, a talisman must have been. Then I the fire's away, clear the charm and all spell. I hid my face until the air grew still, the sky ran clear, the sun broke through and carried me away. Yes, it carried me away. Yes, it carried me away. Across the grass that flies away, clear the job on a horseback.